Yeah, we are going
15,
live.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, but after 1 minute, I will stop.
Yeah,
58 now. Okay.
yeah, we are live now. Thank you. Screen sharing stop. So now I'm start.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. On behalf of Apeejay Schools, I take this opportunity to welcome you all this beautiful evening. 23rd September is celebrated worldwide as the International Day of Sign Language. It is an opportunity to support and protect the identity and the cultural diversity of all the people with hearing impairment and also other sign language users. This year, the theme is We Sign for Human Rights. And we at APJ Schools thought there's no better day than today to celebrate the diversity that exists amongst us by proclaiming we are inclusive. Yes, the moment we accept and respect diversity that exists amongst each one of us, we become inclusive. And today, I thank all the people who have joined this program with us today. CEO Sir, Mr. Kiranjit Singh Pannu, the four principals of our units, Ma'am Moushumi Gupta, Ma'am Shashmita Tripathi, Ma'am Paramita Guharoy, and Ma'am Anandita Banerjee, to find time from their busy schedules to share their thoughts. Today, we are also glad and we are very happy to say that we have Dr. Rathan Sarkar and Ma'am Shabnam Rahman as our chief guests for the day. Let me brief you a little bit about Dr. Rathan Sarkar. Dr. Rathan Sarkar is presently working as the head of the Department of the Education and Assistant Professor of Education at the Department of Teachers Training, Prabhat Kumar College, Kontai, West Bengal. He of the National Merit Scholarship in the year 2010, 29, and also the Subhash Chandra Smriti Medha Vritti in the year 2010 from the Uttar Bongo Sambad and National Research Fellowship from UGC. He has also been honored with the Best Paper Presenter Award for his outstanding presentation in a national conference conducted by the National Institute of Empowerment of Persons with Multiple Disabilities. Welcome, Dr. Sarkar. I also take this opportunity to welcome Ma'am Rahman. Ma'am Shabnam Rahman has been working as a consultant rehabilitation psychologist and a special educator with Crystal Minds since 2013. She consults young children, young people, and families experiences developmental disabilities, ADHD, anxiety, emotional issues, and school-related challenges. Welcome, Ma'am Rahman. Before we proceed, we would like to ask Dr. Sarkar a question and then we'll move forward with Ma'am Rahman. Dr. Sarkar, welcome.
Yeah, namaste, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am. Am I
So,
audible?
yes, yes, you're audible. So, our question to you is I am a layman in the field of inclusive education. I'm also a layman in the field of psychology. I would like you to share your thoughts on the sector of disability, particularly hearing impairment, and would like you to share your pointers or your suggestions as to how can we bring them to the mainstream. Over to you, Dr. Sarkar.
Well, first of all, thank you, ma'am. And I think I'm audible at your end. Hello?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So actually, my voice would be not much clear because I'm facing some problems since last 2 days. But yes, I respect your invitation and I'll try to do the justice to the matter allotted to me. Anyway, so the thing is, let me come to the point to answer your question. The thing is, now, if you see that the term that is inclusive education, this is, what should I say? This is the latest and more scientific, and we can say that one of the best form of education that we ever had. And it has evolved, after research on different areas, and it has evolved after many advancement in the field of knowledge, in the field of technology, in the field of pedagogy, and in the field of disability studies and all. We had an era of segregation, then we had an era of special education, then we have an era of integrated education. Now we are belonging to an era, or to a phase of time which is called a time of inclusion. See, it has become true because of many numbers of international and national policies, legislations, acts, different conventions and treaties. To mention few, I would just like to take the name of United Nations Conventions on Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which came into existence in 2006, and India got it. India became signatory in the year 2007, and after that, in India, just to give the reality to the principles of that particular convention, Government of India became committed, and they came up with one of the landmarking legislation, namely Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act in the year 2016, which is nothing but the replica of UNCRPD, and it completely talks about, or it completely mentions the principles, and it completely talks about the mechanism which is devoted to implement the idea, or which is devoted to actualize the objective or achieve the objective of UNCRPD. And it has replaced the earlier act, that is PWD Act of 1995, which was completely based on medical model of disability. And now we have this one, that is Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, that is RPWD Act of 2016. This act, in core, has 2 points in clear way. One is, it is completely act. It is an act which completely focuses on the human rights model of disability. That is one of the things that we need to understand. And it also talks about equal rights and opportunities for everyone. And it also talks about respecting the diversity, not disability. It is not talking about, it has defined the term disability in different manner. It is not defining the term disability in a manner like, or in a way like medical model, or in a way like social model. It greatly emphasize on the term disability from the perspective of medical right-based model of disability. That means, like other counterparts or like other people, a person with a disability should be treated as a person first, and since he is a person and a human being, here comes the rights, that is human rights. So since a person with a disability is a human being first, there comes the human rights. There lies the significance of this particular act. So it is talking about the rights of persons with disabilities, not in a specific manner like, this is something special given to the persons with disabilities. Actually, for years long, the persons with disabilities has been segregated, or it has have been neglected, or have been not given the opportunity or the facilities that they deserve, or that they are entitled to. This RBWT Act talked about it very clearly. And now, because of this, in a country like India, creating any sort of disability on the ground of on the ground of disability or any kind of human differences is a kind of offense, and it has been clearly spelled out under this act. And the third chapter of this particular act is completely devoted with the educational perspective for persons with disabilities. That is, this act is completely talking about inclusive education. Inclusive education is a kind of philosophy, I would say. It's a philosophy of including everyone. It's a philosophy of making the environment inclusive. It's a philosophy of making the environment enabling. It's a philosophy of including. It's a philosophy of respecting everyone, irrespective of their diversities or the differences that they do have. And it's a philosophy of breaking the structure that creates barrier or that leads to exclusion for any sort of people, with special focus on persons with disabilities. So see, the philosophy of inclusive education is really great enough. And see, the ambition of any complete education is nothing but to create a kind of inclusive society. So if we do not focus on creating an inclusive schooling system, or if we do not concentrate on creating inclusive, pedagogy or inclusive education system, then we cannot think of having a kind of product, that is, we cannot think of having a kind of citizen that will have an inclusive mind. And without that sort of a product, or without that sort of a citizen, we cannot think of building up a kind of inclusive society and at large a kind of inclusive country. So there lies the democratic spirit and democratic values and constitutional ethos. And everything has been clearly realized and actualized and acknowledged by this particular act. So here is the significance. Now your question is how these persons with disabilities, today is the International Sign Language Day. So I'll be talking more about persons with hearing impairment here, and a little bit less about other categories. Anyway, so see, if we want to include them, that means the persons with disabilities in the mainstream schooling system, then we need to understand what actually inclusion is. And we need to understand the mechanism, or we need to understand the kind of strategies that you need to take up to implement that inclusive education in true spirit. See, many a time, even today's many school, the mainstream schools, so-called mainstream school, they cannot deny to give admission to the persons with disabilities because they have an obligation and they're bound to give the admission. And this compulsion has been made, by some landmarking acts like a Right to Education Act or RPWD Act or something like this, right? But they're giving admission. But I feel, and I believe, on the basis of my research, this belief has been formed. I feel that the most of the school, that mainstream school, those which are claiming themselves to be inclusive enough, are not inclusive actually. Just including persons with disabilities in the mainstream schooling system does not mean that they will be getting education in an inclusive way, or they'll be getting a kind of inclusive education, right? In its actual spirit. It's a kind of we can say partly it is partly a kind of integrated setup, still. So that is the thing we need to realize. We need to think of reforming the curriculum. We need to think of restructuring the teaching learning style. We need to think of coming up with the kind of new sort of inclusive pedagogy. We need to think of the kind of evaluation pattern or assessment pattern or the structure that you follow in your mainstream schooling system, whether that are inclusive or not, whether that are really competent enough or helpful enough for the teachers or for us to accommodate the persons with disabilities, or to address the different needs of persons with disabilities. If we ask this question to us by looking into the structure that we have today in the mainstream schooling system, then many a time we'll get the answer that no, we don't have that sort of inclusive pedagogy, we don't have that sort of inclusive teaching learning methods, we don't have that sort of inclusive or enabling, what should I say, admission policy, we don't have that sort of inclusive infrastructure or barrier-free infrastructure. We don't have, or we don't follow a kind of inclusive evaluation pattern or universal design for learning model. We don't follow all these things. So here comes the problem. Here comes the problems. The moment we realize all these things and we take the initiative to reform the education system in the line or in the light of principle as stated under the inclusive education philosophy, then only the dream of becoming inclusive will be successful, or will get a reality, and will be able to include the persons with disabilities in the mainstream schooling system. And it is not that if we go for inclusive education system, or if we restructure the schooling system to inclusive line, it is not that it will only help the persons with disabilities. It will help the persons without disabilities, right? So if we want to have a kind of inclusive setup, we should think of an inclusive school. We should think of an inclusive schooling system. So this is what, ma'am. I hope I have answered. And if you have any relevant question, then I'll be happy enough to address that, ma'am.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Sarkar. What I gather from what you just said is that it is the hope and the will to change our mindsets that will make a difference. And I'm very proud to say that APJ Schools is an inclusive school. We have been into inclusive education for a very long time now, and we have great departments headed by our HODs and a great team of people who are trying day and night to make the system more relevant and to make the system more inclusive, to accept the differences, to make our children understand and realize that yes, differences do lie and we need to accept it and we need to respect it. Thank you, Dr. Sarkar. Now I'll move on to Ms. Rahman. Ms. Rahman, welcome to the show. Uh, Ms. Rahman, I would like to ask you the ways and means, we as laymen, we as teachers, we as people who are involved into the school setup, and along with the help of the inclusive education department and the psychology department of our schools who constantly train us as to how to make the school more inclusive. I would like to share your thoughts. I would like you to share your thoughts as to how can we make the school setup, our homes, more inclusive in the real setup. Ma'am Rahman.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for having me in this panel. So I would like to add, as Dr. Rathan said, like inclusion is a philosophy. So the ultimate goal is to make an inclusive society or inclusive environment. So we know that the school is the second environment after home where we can make this environment more inclusive. So what to promote inclusive environment in the school, I think the teachers and the parents, they are the leaders who can do that. Why it is important to make this environment more inclusive in respect of when we're talking about the today, especially the persons who are experiencing hearing impairment, is that we know like the children, they grow up in ever-changing context in the environment, and that environment it plays a pivotal role for the overall development of the child. That means, like when we say is the overall development, that means it includes the social emotional development, the speech and language development, the cognitive development. So like how do we develop? I mean, it through interaction, through communication. So as I say, like for the development, communication or interaction is very important. And for these children who are experiencing hearing impairment, for them, the attitude or the attitude of the person or the attitude of the environment, it plays a negative role when we talk about the mental health or when we talk about the development of these children. So it is very important, like when the children to promote, to enhance their interaction within the environment, so they need a tool to communicate. And I think that tool, when we're talking about the inclusive environment in a school, so that tool is sign language, or you can say the visual communication mode. It's very important. And as a school and in home, what we can do, we need to create more awareness about the sign language and visual communication. So, and it is, we can do in different ways. Like we can say, like when we give, for example, we have a lot of kind of projects we have that we used to do, even the students, they used to do at home, or I mean the schools, they conduct projects and different kinds of camps and everything. So we can, what we can do is we can integrate such, I mean, the awareness about the language, about speech, I mean, sign language, or about the disability as a project in the school. And for the and also to, what we can do is to the parents, they need to practice visual mode of communication or the sign language, and even teachers, they can use that in the classroom, so that the person can feel that I am accepted, that I'm accepted as a child, as a student, not as a person with disability. Because the moment when we are saying that a child with a certain kind of disability. So what is happening that I'm not giving you that recognition as a student or as an individual, but rather I'm highlighting your deficits. So here I'd like to share a few, two stories of children and young people, those who are experiencing hearing impairment. They feel themselves that they are the defective things in the society, because they feel that, oh, we are of no use because we do not know, because we have no friends, we do not know how to communicate. And this is something that they have a huge toll on their mental well-being. So and they also said, like, these are the languages, I mean the verbal language, the spoken language that they are, saying, they are seeing that the people around them they are using, and they do not know how to connect with them. They want to connect with them, and this connection can only be possible when I have that mode, that tool to communicate with the person in that environment or in that system. It could be home or it could be the school. So and they also shared, like, the as the language, I mean the verbal language, they do not use and they do not speak, I mean, so it's very difficult for them to follow the instructions in the classroom. Because when we talk about the classroom, there also we are communicating with the children, I mean through instructions, where we are sharing our ideas, our concepts. And what is happening, like when we're sharing these things, so with grade, that our languages become complex. And for these children or for these young people, they have to depend on the lip reading. And lip reading is very difficult, because the kind of instructions we're providing in the classroom, those are very complex. And even though they are using hearing aids or the cochlear implantation, the information, I mean that the auditory information, it not reaches deeply. So what there happens, so their performance lag behind, and there is a more cases of school dropouts, and they feel like I'm excluded. Okay, so what we can say, like, we need to encourage to use visual communication and sign language in school as well as in home. And as we know, like, we all learn more than 2-3 languages. I mean, even in schools, we have the opportunities to learn foreign languages. So why don't the sign language? Because unless we accept this is as a language, but not as a language, because sign language is a it's a non-verbal language, because we know that there are two kinds of language, that is the verbal and non-verbal. So we are using verbal language, and that is the sign language. Because research studies are also saying that, because if we can learn sign language, it will, our brain development, or the more the neural connections will be there, because language always enhances the neural circuits and neural connections in the brain. So this is also very important for the child cognitive development. So if we can incorporate these languages in the classroom, and if we start using the visual communication and sign language at home also, so they will feel confident, and their self-esteem will also increase, and they will feel that I am valued and I am accepted. So I just would like to mention a quote, and that is very beautiful, that I'd like to share with you all. That is, if I accept another person's language, I have accepted the person. If I refuse the language, I thereby refuse the person, because the language is a part of the self. So this is a parent organization is Denmark. So that is this code is from there. So I think when we talk about the inclusion, I feel inclusion itself is it's about the diversity, and diversity is very beautiful because as we can see, like as in the screen also, there are the members, I mean the participants are here, and they are wearing different kinds of, the dresses and the background and everything. So everything is so diverse, but still we are included. See, and we are talking about the inclusion and inclusive environment. So this is all about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Myself, coming from a media background, when I was listening to you and Dr. Sarkar, I could just remember the powerful speech of Michelle McNally, Rani Mukherjee, in the movie Black. The last performance that she gave, that was just so wonderful. Also thinking of Sanjay Leela Bansali's Khamoshi. Such wonderful movies made, which is so included to the discussion that we are having right now. Thank you so much, ma'am Shabnam. Now I would request Gargi Rai. Gargi is a student with us at the Salt Lake branch. She's in class 12, and she will take the program forward from here onwards. Thank you, ma'am Shabnam. Over to you, Gargi. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Gargi Rai, and I send you all my warmest greetings. So, we did a survey and we came up with a few questions which we would like to ask our respected guests. My first question is to Dr. Sarkar. How will you describe sign language from a layman's perspective?
Well, good question actually. See, sign language. You see the term sign and language. A language which is based or made based on some signs or some signals or some what should I say, body movements or some posture, postures of the body or some expression. So in a clear manner, I can say that it's a kind of language that employ sign made with the hands or other movements, including facial expression and body posture, okay, or the postures of the body. And sign language is basically used by the person who are deaf or deaf and dumb, or we can say like persons who have a problem in hearing. It is not that. It is also used by person who are normal, because see, language is a kind of is a mode of communication. Suppose if the persons with hearing impaired only knows about sign language, then they will be able to communicate within themselves, and they'll not be communicate with other so-called normal have no idea about sign language. So this is what is one thing. And another thing is that this is a kind of language which connects or bridges or build up a connection between the world which have vowel language and the world which have no vowel languages. Okay, this is the thing in simple term. And as you know that I think all of you will be knowing that sign probably have been the first form of communication used by man since his evolution. Okay, and sign can also be used as one of the most ancient signal or mode of communication that has been used by the human races. Okay, it has not come suddenly. The first time a baby communicate through sign or signals, right? He expresses his or her feelings or emotions or wants or needs through that signals and signs, right? So that's that signs and the postures or the movements or the kind of expression that you use to convey our thoughts or convey our emotion or convey our needs is called sign language. Okay, it has different dialects, and most importantly, there are around as far my knowledge is concerned, there are more than 54 sign languages that are officially approved or acknowledged, that have been acknowledged. Some of them are like British Sign Language, then we have Spanish Sign Language, we have Chinese Sign Language, we have American Sign Language, then we have Indo-Pakistan Sign Language, then we have Indian Sign Language as well. And not only that, see, in different country, even suppose in India, even we have sign language, Indian Sign Language, but this language may have different dialect from place to place, right? So it has been greatly influenced by the dialects of the natives, or a kind of a kind of geography the person belongs to, right? So that's the thing, right? I think this is the common concept, right? So it's a language where we use sign, where we use a kind of posture or facial expression to convey our thoughts, emotion, or wants, or things like that. Okay, this is what, ma'am. I hope I have
Yes,
answered your question.
yes, yes, sir. Very nicely said. My next question is to Ms. Rahman. Does hearing impairment affect a child's emotional and social development?
Sorry, could you please repeat this question again?
Yes, ma'am. My question is, does hearing impairment, can this affect a child's emotional and social development?
Yes, absolutely, because he or she is a child. And as I said, so for a child's development, whether irrespective of the disability, non-disability, or culture, or age, or whatever, so for a child's development, it is very important to have a positive environment for for their well-being, because when we talk about the well-being and when we talk about the social and emotional development, so these are the domains of development. Because when we talk about the development, the overall development, so development has the certain domains. So the social and emotional development is one of the domain. So and yes, definitely, it plays a significant role in the life of the children who are experiencing hearing impairment, because when they feel that I am not being included in the environment, when they see that I do not have any friend in the school or in the classroom, I do not have anyone to connect with, to share with, to express myself, so they automatically feel that like I am a kind of an alien, and I'm a defective, as I already spoke about it. Like, this is the verbatim of a young child who shared, like, he feels that he's a kind of defective thing, because everyone is, want to cure, I mean, want to fix that problem. But he, according to him, that this is not the problem. I mean, this is my identity, that I am experiencing this. But what I need is that a safe place where I can express myself, okay, where I can share my thoughts. So of course, it is very important. We need to we need to think about the social and emotional development of the child, so whoever he is. Thank you. I hope I have answered your question.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely. My next question again is to Dr. Sarkar. Can we introduce sign language training at an elementary stage? And if we do so, how will it help hearing impaired children in long run?
Well, it's a good question, Gargi. Let me share a few of the facts that I have just, got by doing some sort of research or review of literature. Let me share some, important fact. Then I'll get back to your question. See, the population, the total population of deaf in India is huge. It is nearly 10 to 15 million, right, around. And even in the census of India, in the Indian census 2011, which says that we have around 50 lakhs people with deaf, means hearing impairment in India. I believe and I confidently say that this statistics is not the actual, what should I say, number. This data does not project the actual number, because it has followed certain some sort of parameter or some sort of mechanism to collect data, which is exclusive in nature. I'm not going to talk how it is exclusive in nature. That is different part. And see, another thing is that out of the total population of persons with disabilities, some researchers believe that we have around 35 to 50% of total populations of persons with disabilities are with hearing impaired. Now see, here comes the importance. The number is huge, right? The number is really huge. And again, if you see Another statistics are another kind of research that was done by the Gallaudet University, which is one of the I should say that number one university, which is only for the persons with deaf. The professor, the teachers, the faculty members, everyone, the students who are studying there are deaf. You can see in the net and you can find, it's very interesting. It has done it did a research, and it found that the persons with deaf who spending their schooling life in normal so-called mainstream school, 80% of the total schooling life they usually spend in normal school, so-called mainstream school, right? And only 3.1% of persons with hearing impairment are getting special treatment. That means they're getting treatment, or they're getting their needs met in a separate setting with sign language or some sort of related assistance, right? Now see, here starts the exclusionary mechanism, right? Now let me tell you one thing. Another statistic says that 90% of the persons with hearing impairment do belong to a family or a parent who are with hearing, means they do not have any problem with their hearing. So they face the problem, means they do not know the sign language and other things of related to that. So see, even the parent are not able to communicate with the persons with with their own child. Now see, there is a gap in terms of understanding their emotion, in terms of giving them the support system that they need to become a good kind of child, or the kind of or to ensure the holistic development from the childhood, right? And I think Shabnam madam is there, she's from psychology, and psychology, what psychology says, the 80% of the brains develops within the span of 0 to 6 years, if I'm not wrong, right? Now see, during these spans of time, if we are not able to understand the child, and if we are not able to communicate with the child, right, by understanding their need, as well as by making them feel that they're accepted, they're part of the community, they're part of the family, and they're respected and they're valued, if we do not, if we fail to make this sense happen in their mind, so you can imagine what sort of emotional development will take place, or what sort of problem will take place in the mind of the child, right, or in their life, right? Here comes the thing. So there lies the importance of taking initiative to teach the child, as well as the parent and other people who are dealing with the child, about sign language. Okay, so there lies the needs. And information is a power. Means how much money you have, that is not a power, or whatever you possess, that is not a power. Information is a power, and to access the information, what we need a language, we need a mode, be it a verbal or be it non-verbal, right? So if we do not have that mode, or if we do not have that channel to access the information, then we'll be powerless after a certain period of time, right? See, what will happen if there is no language for certain group of people, they will not be able to access the information, right? And once they are not able to access the information, they will not be able to become a contributing member. They'll not be able to become like us, like saying what we need, like saying what we don't need, like saying what making decision has to be made for our life, right? My parent cannot say that this is the thing you need to do, this is the thing you need to do, because I know I have a language, I have access that I have that power to access the information, and information is nothing but the knowledge, and that knowledge is contributing to build up our wisdom, right? So on the basis of the same, we are making decision, right, what to do and what not to do. And this is the problem that happens with the persons with hearing impairment, right? They many times they are not able to take their own decision, what subject they should study, what profession they should take up, or what job they should take up after a certain period of time. Suppose if I do not like a job, and if my parent is imposing something on me, I'll not be able to do good in that, right? So there comes the problem, there starts the problem, right? So that is where lies the importance of sign language training at the earlier stage of life, right? The faster you train, or the faster you establish a mode of communication in between the child who cannot hear and the other who can hear, the greater success will be there in the life of the child, right? In terms of in terms of everything, in terms of every spheres of life. To mention few, let me just tell you something. See, the sign language, it helps the persons with hearing impairment to make a kind of communication even within themselves, means the person who cannot hear, even with others who can hear, right? And then language is only language is also one of the most important part, that not only helps to make a communication, or that not only helps us to build up a communication or to do communication, it helps us for social inclusion, right? Without language, social inclusion is not possible. Another point is that it helps us to access education. It helps us to access information. And accessing education is not only accessing education. Getting education is a way to enabling other rights as well, right? So there lies the importance of sign language. Then it helps us, or it helps the persons with hearing impaired to get an appropriate job, or to choose to take a decision in their life, right? It also helps them to develop their confidence, right? So everything is connected. So this is how a language is important. It helps a person with hearing impairment in every sphere of life, right? So that is why I can say that, yes, giving training about sign language to the parent as well as to the child who are facing language related problem at the earliest stage, at the earlier, age, is really important, right? So many times what happens, if you do not give them the training about sign language, they will get into the mainstream schooling system, and very systematically they'll prove themselves that they cannot communicate, they cannot maintain a kind of social relationship with the peers and the teachers and other people. Even they cannot take a decision. Even they cannot say what they need. Even they cannot say what they don't need, right? So these sort of things will come. And how we will define all these things? We'll define all these things as a sort of stupidity or less intellect or something like that. So it is not like stupidity, or it is not like something less intellect. It's all about the information we have not been able to give them, right? And it's all about the kind of channel we have not been able to make to help them to get the information, to help them to access the information. And there starts the gap. Okay, it is not only in education, it will affect not only in education, it will affect in every sphere of life, right? Socialization, then individual thinking, decision making, or participation in any program or anything, right? So this is how it affects. So I think this is why giving training about sign language at the earliest as possible is very important. Okay.
Yes, sir. My final question is to Mr. Haman. Just now, Dr. Sarkar was talking about how important learning sign language is for at early stage, and obviously, if we cannot be successfully communicate with other people, cannot express ourselves, it will cause emotional burden. So, how can we all, like parents, siblings, friends, teacher, can provide a better environment for children who are differently able, specifically those with hearing impairment, to further aid their mental health?
Okay, this is a very beautiful question, I would say. So I think what we need is to create a safe space for the children. When we're talking about, the neurodiversity, for all children. So how does this safe place look like? It's kind of environment. It's a responsive environment. Okay, so responsive environment is where we can observe the child. Okay, we can observe, and we need to listen to the child. Okay, so now when we are talking about the children with hearing impairment, so as we say, then how we are going to listen the child? So what we can do is, like, we can make a kind of album or a copy or something, and a paper and pen is enough to make a responsive environment when we are talking about the children who are experiencing hearing impairment. So what is important, as in our curriculum, we learn about the parts of body, or like the geography, history. It is also very important for every children to learn about the self-regulation, the emotion regulation. So for hearing impairment, what happened, like, the emotion is an abstract concept. So when we are teaching, or when these children are learning any concept, so when the concepts are in a concrete form, so it is very easier for them. For example, if I say like a ball. So I can show you a ball. But when I'm saying like I'm jealous, or when I'm saying I'm low, I'm feeling down, so how I'm going to relate, or how I'm going to express it? So that only paper and pencil is enough. Like, we can sit and we can draw, we can talk about any issues, even we can talk about our, our skills, our abilities. It is not only about our the problem stories, I mean, as I said, like the problems, but it is like to sharing of the positive as well as the negative experiences of life. So when we're talking about the mental health or the home environment in respect of these children, so it is very important to create a responsive environment where both the children and the parents, they need to be engaged in that environment. They need to be engaged with the child. So we need to listen, we need to talk about the emotions. So how it can possible, like for the abstract thing, so the more we use visuals, the more we show it through our actions, even the play, that is the very fantastic way to, to develop the social emotional development, or kind of, as we are saying, for the mental health or well-being. So, and also the responsive environment is a kind of for example, it's a tennis, it's a kind of tennis game. That means like when I am serving and then you are responding. Okay, so response and serve should be there. That means when the child and the parents or whoever is in the immediate environment of the child, so they need to communicate. Okay, and this will help them to enhance their self-identity, their self-esteem, and even the motivation. But if you stop talking, if you stop listening, and if you only give them the instructions like do that, do this, don't do that, what will happen that they won't get that place, to express themselves. And what happens that when I'm not getting that space to express myself, so it has an impact on our mental health again. And these children, they experience severe kind of social emotional issues. Okay, so that we also need to take care of. And of course, we need to acknowledge the skills and abilities of the child. Okay, we need to accept the child as a child. It is not like that the child, he or she is having a certain kind of disabilities. No, a child is first an individual, so we need to accept them as an individual first. So the more the environment is positive, the relationship will be more positive, and there will be a bonding within the members, within that immediate environment, and that will help them to, promote their overall development.
Yes, ma'am. I one of my favorite movie, which is called The Silent Voice, it actually talks about mental health of about and. There is the main character is deaf, and I think it actually beautifully shows that, and whatever you described is actually described in that movie. So I express my gratitude to our esteemed panelists. We highly appreciate you for sharing your knowledge and enlightening us.
Thank you, Gargi, and I appreciate your effort to beautifully collate all the questions for our panelists. Thank you so much. Now, I would request our CEO, Apeejay Schools, Lieutenant Commander Mr. Kiranjeet Singh Pannu, to please take the stage. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, respected Dr. Sarkar and Shabnam ma'am, thank you so much on behalf of the Apeejay schools to join into something as important as one part of inclusive education. Apeejay Group or the Apeejay Education Trust, the board behind it, the members of the Paul family behind it, who started it in 1975. When I interact with them, anytime when I interact with them, inclusivity is not something that we want as a part of a leverage to, the goal of being there. It's not like being there. Inclusivity is something we believe in from our heart, our brain, and our mind. And that is why inclusive education is a way of life for us at APJ schools. And our faculty, our children, our a lot of our senior faculty, for years they have been working, and I'm happy to say that we are proud enough, not because we've won awards from the government for inclusive education. That's a very small part of it. I think our greatest achievement is we have achieved miracles and success stories with a lot of children who have studied with us and went on and are doing really well in various sectors, mainly because from our heart and our brain and our minds we really took care of them. And then with all the other expertise and experts like all of you who helped us over the years in our inclusive curriculum and pedagogy and execution of the pedagogy, I think that's where I think the success is. So I'm so happy to see that the younger generation is much more inclusive in the country. And education, in any case, what is school education? I remember about 10 years back, a young girl in Goa asking me this question in one of the halls. Later, I came to know that this girl unfortunately was in a very troubled background where her single mother was abused and abused very badly over the years, and she grew up in an environment like that. And she asked me one question which actually shook me there, that what is school education all about? What is the need to go to school? and uh, and she was not a young girl, she was a girl in her grade 9. And I could understand that something is disturbing this girl, which makes her feel that school is not a place to really go to, because education, something somewhere is not right. And irrespective of the, I did not really know the background. Later I came to know about this, but fortunately for me, the thought that came to my mind was, which I shared with her, is that school education is all about learning how to live your life, isn't it? That's what it's all about. It's not about math, science, social studies, English. Those subjects or those concepts we can learn at any stage in life through any way. And nowadays, with a lot of technology content coming in, you could even do it without going to a school. But I think school education is about life, and life is about inclusion. When human beings started living in society, they were otherwise on their own. They just kind of evolved. And so I think inclusion should be a way of life. It should not be something which you do optionally. Maybe over the years we have lacked the will, the desire, and definitely, as sir today, Dr. Sarkar, I'm also kind of surprised to know that it is only recently that a legislation like this is in place, because I'm not that in depth into the legislation part. I'm more into the execution part. But it is surprising. But fortunately for us, it is good that as a country we have finally evolved into a legislation which also controls it. More than the legislation, I think what we need to teach the younger kids is that including a child, as rightly pointed out by you at the start, that first of all, he is a human, he or she, isn't it? It's all about being human first. And human beings are meant to be inclusive. They are not meant to. That's why they've got the brain and they evolved from the animals. Animals are much more inclusive, isn't it? So that's how it is. So I think first, understanding that inclusion is not an option. It's about first treating everybody as human, including him or her the way he or she is, including him or her the way he or she wants to evolve in life, and including him or her the way he or she wants to attain what he or she wants to achieve, isn't it? And then inclusion, of course, there's no end to what all you need to be inclusive about. You need to be inclusive about religion, you need to be inclusive about caste, you need to be inclusive about the diversity of the various countries. And I think recently a lot of countries have realized when the pandemic has hit them that the global inclusiveness, the importance of being connected with one another is so much important. And I think Dr. Sarkar rightly pointed out that God's design is also like this. When a young kid is born, I mean, the kid does not really communicate, isn't it? It's all about sign languages. The mothers understand when the child cries, she understands he needs to be fed, and it's all about hand gestures and expressions. And after all, teaching learning is also about hand gestures and expressions, isn't it? That is why I think the greatest worry that we had when the schools shut is that how could you open pre-primary schools, and then how could you run pre-primary schools with the teachers having the masks? I mean, that the whole concept of pre-primary education is expressions, isn't it? It's all about expressions, and the child learns from the faces of the teachers and the expression. So how can that really happen? So I think one good takeaway which I have had from today's discussion, along with the other important information that came, is I think that really is a note which I have taken, and I think as APJ schools, our faculty and our kids should work out a strategy in terms of how do we have the basic sign language learned by our kids. I think that's a very important thing. And what we should do is that somehow maybe devoting 1 hour a week or devoting one session a week, we should make it kind of a process where the sign language or the basic communicative sign language is learned and taught. And I really agree with both the expert guests today that I normally tell this to the kids also, that if you want to be successful in life, you need to master 4 languages. One, of course, English, because we all know that English is something which really puts us apart in the world. Second, Hindi, because we are in India, so you will move around. So at some point or juncture, you will have to understand Hindi and communicate your mother tongue, which is, I think, the most essential, because after all, your entire basic information and understanding happens in your mother tongue. And fourth, I normally always say, is one foreign language, because we are in a global citizenship world where foreign language really puts you apart. So whether it's German, whether it's Spanish, whether it's French, but I think from today, I would add another fifth aspect or the fifth dimension for every kid to really learn on is the sign language. So I think this is a very important takeaway for us as a school, that English, Hindi, mother tongue, one foreign language, and out of the 54, one form of sign language. I think that's something which we will include in our curriculum. So thank you so much for to both of you for your time today evening. Of course, the kids and the faculty who put their effort behind this, and I think they would just be presenting a kind of a manual which they have created, which could be actually a good first step for us to start learning upon the basics of sign language. So over to you, Shivana ma'am. I think it's the time we can, go ahead with the presentation of the manual. Thank you so much, Dr. Sarkar and Shabnam ma'am. And I'm really happy and thrilled with the kids and the faculty. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. This manual that our schools have jointly created is being collated by Ma'am Annapurna Maruvada. Ma'am Maruvada is a faculty with the APJ Schools Park Street branch. Uh, we intend to definitely start crash courses for our children to understand the basics of sign language. Requesting Ma'am Ananya Banerjee to please let us have a walk through the manual, please. Thank you. I think this is a holistic manual which talks about everything that our children need to know preliminary from the very elementary stage. Thank you, Ma'am Annapurna Maruvada, once again for collating this manual for us. Thanks a lot, ma'am. And from the Department of Psychology and Inclusive Education, we will provide this manual to all the students of our schools and also to the parents and the stakeholders who are with us in this continuous pursuit for excellence. Thank you so much, Ma'am Banerjee, for presenting the entire manual for us. I would also like to thank Mr. Anirban Datta for designing the manual on behalf of APJ Schools from the Corporate House. Now, proceeding further, I would request Ma'am Moshami Gupta, Principal Haldia School, to please share her views today. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Shamana. Thank you for the invitation and very good evening to you all. Hope I'm audible to everybody.
Yes, you're audible, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, it's a great pleasure and privilege to be a part of the interaction this evening. I'm overwhelmed with the initiative taken by the team to remind us all that we all need to include all forms of life around us with respect. Allow no one to feel threatened or abandoned, but to feel accepted and embraced by our actions. About 15% of the world's population, as I can see from the statistics available, they experience some sort of physical conditions which make them different from the rest of us. And they are most likely to experience adverse social outcomes, which we were discussing about in the past hour. And I think an effective communication such as the sign language can play a very important role in eliminating the differences that has been caused because of their conditions between us. And I believe that when we secure the rights of these particular types of people of special need, we move our world a little more closer to upholding the core values and principles that actually establish us as humans. Well, talking about the being human, I would like to share a small little understanding from some readings that I have done. There's a philosophy called as Ubuntu Philosophy. The word Ubuntu actually comes from an African Zulu language that translates as I am because we are. A very simple phrase that actually expresses that one's personhood is deeply rooted and interconnected with the others. Everyone around us, regardless of their physical abilities, impact our living in various known and unknown ways. Well, once again, I would like to thank and congratulate the team for allowing me to witness one such step forward towards being open and available to each other. It's been an honor to be among such accomplished individuals and learn the kind of learning that we had this evening with very little span of time, and to be able to present my perspective on this particular topic before you all. Thank you so much. Yes,
Thank you,
Shimon, over to you.
ma'am, because we are. That's so true.
Yes.
Now, meeting Ma'am Paramita Bhuroy, Principal Park Street, to share her views. Thank you.
Good evening to one and all present here. Well, I have been extremely fortunate to be associated with the school for a very long time, about 25 plus years now. And perhaps it, children with special needs in a very, very positive way. Am I audible? Because there is a...
You're audible.
Yeah. So we started sometimes around 2007, 2008, and it's been a long journey and a very fruitful one at it. And today, as Sir has mentioned, we can take pride in saying that, all our teachers, they have undergone a transformation as far as understanding the needs of children who are special, in the sense they have special abilities. So, and as all of us who are part of this educational field, we all know that the new education policy has stressed primarily in a very big way to include these children. It is sad that there are schools, and I've been in the process of admission, and I have always felt that there are plenty of parents who feel so helpless because most of the schools, they refuse these children. So as Dr. Sarkar was mentioning that, it is something which needs to be not only, we have our laws, but there are always loopholes to laws. So it has to be not only just not in the book of law, it has to be implemented. All schools, all educators, all school leaders, they will have to take it as something important, as important as giving a holistic upbringing to all students. So we cannot and we do not differentiate, and we always try to mainstream them so that they become part of the bigger picture. So this was a very, very enriching experience for me, sitting at home listening to all of you, and especially Gargi coming up with such wonderful questions, and which was enlightening. So thank you, Shumana, and thank you the entire team for organizing this and making me a part of the program. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It is indeed a very enriching evening. Before we conclude for the day, I would sincerely take this opportunity to thank each one of you for joining in, especially Dr. Sarkar, Ma'am Rahman, Mr. Kiranjit Singh Pannu, Ma'am Gupta, Ma'am Paramita Guharoy, for finding time from your busy schedule and share your thoughts with all of us. Special mention to all the teachers of the Inclusive Education Department and the Psychology Department, especially Ma'am Tina Bose, Ma'am Rashmi Mantri, Ma'am Annapurna Maravada, Ma'am Sahili Mukherjee, Ma'am Rupanjana Nath, Ma'am Sagrika Das, Ma'am Jayashree Banerjee, and Ma'am Ananya Banerjee, and also Mr. Punjabi Nayak. Thank you so much. I would love to conclude today's evening session with a lovely quote which says, "Learning sign language isn't just learning the various signs for the very similar things, but learning another approach to consider life." Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you. Let us stand for the national anthem.